If you ever think of the worst designed maps in Dead by Daylight, then chances are Haddonfield would most likely be somewhere on the top of that list. How does a map go from being the worst killer map to the worst survivor map in the game? Hello everyone, my name is Martin, and in this video we're gonna go over the historical downfall of Haddonfield. On October 25th of 2016, Behavior released the Halloween chapter. That's when we got Michael Myers, Laurie Strode, and Haddonfield, the most broken map Dead by Daylight ever had. This map made killer players go bald, and it wasn't too unusual if the killer just gave up as soon as they got Haddonfield.
It's just the bunny.
I think he's given up. He just looked at me and gave up. I think he gave up.
But you might ask, what makes this map so broken? Well, on release, it had a guardhouse, strong 2-story houses, shit ton of pallets, shit ton of windows. And to top it all off, it had these long fences. I'm gonna show you guys an example. As you all know, this is the new Haddonfield. Now let's take a look at this house and compare. There's a gen that always spawns there, there's no pallet on this side, and there's a pallet on this side. This pallet might spawn on the other side sometimes, but you only get one of them. On most kills you have to pretty much break this pallet. It's quite a strong pallet. And then you have this one upstairs. You can play around it. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it's a decent pallet. And this is all this house has in the new Haddonfield. If I run around, I'll show you guys. There's nothing here. A pallet can spawn here sometimes, and it's quite weak. You can easily play around it. This doesn't really do much. And as you can see, there's absolutely nothing than these two pallets, and sometimes you get a third really bad pallet. Now I'll show you guys the same house in the old Haddonfield. Let's take a look. You have a god pallet always spawn here, on this side. And then you have another god pallet on this side as well, that you have to break both of these pallets. And on top of that, you have this window next to the stairs. Now remember, you have 3 of these windows in this house alone. There are 3 windows. In the new Haddonfield, you don't have a single one. Chasing somebody in this house is an absolute nightmare. As a survivor, you had unlimited options here. 3 windows and 2 pallets. And remember, there are 3 of these houses in the old Haddonfield. And that was only one of them that has 2 god pallets and 2 windows. These buildings also has a lot of window vaults that survivor can take as well. So you have to break 2 pallets, and after you've done that, you have to worry about windows. You could also create infinites with these houses if you had one perk slotted, and that is Balanced Landing. If you guys don't know, the old Balanced Landing is pretty much the same as the new one. Every time when you fall from a height, you get a speed boost and you get exhausted. But the old Balanced Landing had no stagger when you fall, even if you were exhausted. So you could create infinites between these houses. Let's say you went against a 110 killer like Huntress, she could just never catch up to you, because she always loses bloodlust and can never retain bloodlust on you. Every time you fall from a height of these houses, you get no stagger, so you can keep running around them until the window blocked. And let's say one window blocked, then you have 2 god pallets. This map was an absolute nightmare for killer players. It wasn't too unusual to see 20 minutes chases if the survivors were experienced enough in the old Haddonfield. And if you thought that was all, well, you thought wrong. Now let's talk about the fences. The old Haddonfield had these long fences that pretty much covered the entire tile. It took the killer like 15 seconds to just go around them. And the worst is, if you had a killer on one side and the survivor on the opposite side of where you are, it would take the killer so long to catch up with the survivor. And all the survivor had to do is just go around in a circle. What made this so annoying, you could see the survivor on the other side of the fence, but there was nothing you could do to catch them. You have to go around, unless you played the killer like Nurse. If you didn't play DBD when the old Haddonfield was around, then you can see these long fences on Badham Preschool map. I'm sure there are some little stuff that I might have missed. It's been a while since I played the old Haddonfield, but to recap quickly, it had an insane amount of windows, shit ton of good pallets, a lot of good long fences, and a lot of houses. The old Haddonfield, it was the worst map for a long time for killer. Things needed to change. After almost 4 entire years of misery to the killer players, Behavior finally decided to rework Haddonfield. On the 2nd of February 2022, Haddonfield and the stored key offering got disabled. At the start, nobody knew why, people were just speculating. The developers did not tell us why they were disabled. It was though very obvious that they were reworking the map. Again, for some reason they did not say they were doing it. After a while, Behavior finally revealed that they were doing a rework, and the community was very excited, especially the killer players. This broken map is finally getting a rework. That was something we wanted for a long time. On the 5th of April 2022, the PTB of the new Haddonfield was released. This rework was nothing we expected. When Behavior rework maps, they tend to keep the same map atmosphere and just change the graphics, but with this map, it was almost a completely new map. It looked completely new to us, but this was not only a visual update, the gameplay of the map was also reworked. For starters, they reduced the size of the map, and most importantly the buildings got completely reworked. They also made the main street a lot bigger, and the sad part is, the new reworked Haddonfield was a complete failure. 2 of the houses got 2 strong windows for some reason. These 2 windows could also be classified as infinite loops, so this heavily benefits survivors. Now let's talk about what was beneficial for killers on the first Haddonfield rework. For some reason, these 3 gens could spawn very close next to each other, and as a killer, you could just sit and defend these 3 gens for the entire game and not go anywhere else, and that was the best strategy to do, is to never chase anyone far from these 3 gens. Also keep in mind, you could kick gens indefinitely 2 years ago, and just keep the survivors hostage, pretty much, until they gave up or the game crashed. If you decide to go and chase someone, then the map was still pretty big, and most of the houses had really good windows. Like the 2 I showed, these had 2 really good windows. So as killer, the best thing was to do is to just sit in one area and defend 3 gens, which is very boring gameplay. We waited 4 years for this rework and it was very much disappointing, but it was still a lot better than the old Haddonfield. A whole 2 years after the first rework, Haddonfield received another one, and this is what we have today. This is why I call it the most killer-sided map we have today. Let's take a look why this map is so bad. Let's first start with the Michael house. This house got nerfed quite a lot. Let's go in the house and take a look why this house was nerfed so much. This window was completely blocked. They made a hole here as well. If you have this window at the back, that means the window in the front is blocked, as you can see here. If this window is available, that means you don't have any window in the back. So this house has only one window in downstairs, and they also made a hole in the wall. There is a decent pallet there as well. On this entire place you have a giant dead zone, with a very weak pallet on the edge map. Everything else here is a giant dead zone. A couple pallets can spawn near the houses, and as you can see in the middle of the map you have absolutely nothing. You have one pallet that can spawn in front of the house. As you can see, all of this is an entire dead zone here, with a very weak pallet on the edge map. This is a decent pallet that you can get, and at the back you have a big giant dead zone again. Now let's go and take a look at the houses, because they made these houses a lot weaker. They removed all the problematic windows. We got a pallet here, and then we have only one window in this house, and nothing on the other side. This used to be 2 windows. As a killer, you can easily play around this window by just going outside. I already showed this house in the start of the video. Now let's go and see that house at the back. This also used to have 2 windows, which they also removed as well. You only get one window, and then they made a hole in the wall, so you could play around this window on killer, when you couldn't do that before. And this is the map we have today. A very weak map for survivors, with very little to no safety. And in my opinion, this is the best killer map in the game, because this map has pretty much nothing. Let's take a look at the upstairs of the house quickly. They made a lot of holes in the wall. You used to get a window there, but now you don't get it anymore. You still have this window, but they made another hole here, so as killer you could also easily play around it and just go around and jump down. I just think it's crazy that this map was so survivor sided and now it's so killer sided. It's funny how the cards turned around. I don't know what they can do to fix this map at this point. I think maybe if they add something on these giant dead zones. I don't know, they have reworked this map 2 times and it is still a complete failure. I hope this video has given you some insight on how bad the old Haddonfield used to be for Killer and how bad it is now for Survivor. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good one, guys.